when Daniel casually suggested for the 8th time that one of his students should be my bridesmaid. I smiled and agreed. Anna followed Daniel everywhere like a personal accessory. She was even there on the day I tried on my wedding dress. Clinging to Daniel's arm, she coquettishly said, "Professor, can I wear this bridesmaid dress?" Daniel said he wanted to respect my opinion, but still agreed indulgently. I looked at the bridesmaid dress she had chosen, more extravagant than my own wedding gown, and smiled gently. Of course, Anna looks the most beautiful in this one. After all, the main character of this wedding was never going to be me. In 3 days, I would be leaving the country to study abroad. Chapter 1. Daniel had once been a poor student sponsored by my family. Before my family went bankrupt, we supported him all the way through his doctorate and even invested money to help him establish his own research group afterward. He lived up to it, from a small-town exam prodigy to a university professor. Everything went smoothly, successful and accomplished, admired by all. In the eyes of outsiders, Daniel was the most successful investment my father had ever made. After my family's bankruptcy, he kept his promise and married me, willing to give me a life free of material worries. But I knew clearly that all of this was nothing more than my parents' final request on their deathbeds. And Daniel couldn't swallow his pride. Marrying me was simply his way of repaying a debt of gratitude. More than once, when he was drunk out of his mind, he complained that this marriage had trapped him. Yet when sober, he would gaze at me affectionately in front of others and say that I would be his only support for the rest of his life. Lost in thought, I heard Anna's coquettish voice outside the fitting room. "Big sister won't be upset, right? My bridesmaid dress seems a bit too glamorous, like I'm stealing the spotlight." Daniel smiled, his tone gentle and indulgent. "It's very beautiful, as long as you like it. Celine is generous, there won't be any problem." Anna beamed. "Professor Daniel, you're the best." I looked at my own reflection in the mirror, my face slightly worn, the pure white wedding dress looking dull on me. Sure enough, a marriage entered without expectation brings no happiness at all. Chapter 2. After trying on the main wedding gown, I signaled the shop assistant to help me take it off. She looked surprised. "Miss Celine, aren't you going out to let your fiancé see it?" I smiled. "There's no need. Daniel wouldn't be looking forward to seeing me in a wedding dress anyway." I didn't want to feel disappointed once more through his eyes. When I stepped outside, Anna was joking around with Daniel, complaining that her dress was too tight and uncomfortable. Daniel teased her. "I think you've just been eating too much lately. All the project funding probably went into snacks, didn't it? Your senior even complained that the lab bench was full of potato chip crumbs. It must have been you. You little glutton." Anna stomped her foot and pouted. "No way. I've actually lost weight recently. If you don't believe me, feel my waist." The two of them flirted shamelessly, as if no one else existed. Even the shop assistants stared in shock, then turned to me with sympathetic looks. Only when I came out did Daniel finally react. "Already done? That was fast." "Yes, that one from just now will do. I have something else to take care of. I'll head out first." Anna immediately said, "Celine, are you angry?" "I'm sorry, I really didn't mean to steal your spotlight today." "I apologize." Before I could respond, Daniel frowned and said unhappily, "What are you apologizing for? You didn't do anything wrong." Then he turned to me with a stern face and snapped, "Celine, I've noticed you've been acting more and more off lately. Your temper keeps getting worse. If you'd just soften up with me a little." Soften up? Daniel must have forgotten that over these years, I'd softened up far too many times in his house, so many that I once forgot that 5 years ago, we had both graduated as master's students from top-tier 985 universities. Later, when my family suffered misfortune, my parents, wanting me to have someone to rely on for the rest of my life, used their past kindness as leverage and made Daniel agree to marry me. For 5 years, in the name of his fiancée, I handled everything for him. Before my father passed away, he even entrusted the entire company to Daniel. My family had poured too much effort into him. The sunk cost was too great. It once made me feel unable to walk away. But later, as Daniel's reputation grew and his value skyrocketed, he became the most sought-after golden bachelor among university professors. When he casually mentioned that a lively, energetic new graduate student had joined his research group, and suggested that Anna be my bridesmaid, I finally woke up. Daniel didn't want to be criticized for forgetting past kindness. so he reluctantly fulfilled the engagement. But in the end, gratitude like this could never last. Chapter 3. After returning home from the bridal fitting, Daniel threw a huge tantrum. He accused me of treating Anna unfairly. If you didn't want Anna to be your bridesmaid in the first place, you could have just said so. There was no need to make things so difficult for her. Was there? I said nothing and quietly packed my things. Daniel continued complaining and blaming me, even when he slammed the door and stormed out. He didn't notice that half of the wardrobe was already empty. In this so-called marital home, there was shockingly little that belonged to me. Once everything was packed, it amounted to no more than 2 suitcases. I opened my phone and checked my email again. The professor from the research group in Germany had sent me the online preparatory course schedule. In 3 days, I would be leaving this place that had confined me for 5 years. Daniel didn't come home that night, but I saw photos of him and Anna in the lab on her moments. The caption read, "Late night thesis revisions. Professor, you're really something." 2 teary-eyed emojis followed, looking helpless, yet faintly smug. A student from the same research group commented below, "Isn't Professor Daniel about to get married? Why is he still so busy?" Anna replied, "So what if he's getting married?" I smiled, turned off my phone, and went to sleep. Chapter 4. The next morning, I went to visit my parents' graves. I knelt before the tombstones and bowed 3 times. "Your daughter is unfilial. I'm afraid I'm going to go against your final wishes." In the black and white photo, my mother's smile was gentle and kind. I remembered how she had held my hand on her deathbed, wanting to say something yet stopping herself again and again. In the end, leaving me alone in this world filled her with too many regrets. In the afternoon, I went to the mall to buy necessities for studying abroad. By the time I got home, it was already 9 o'clock. Daniel wasn't back. The house felt cold and empty. I called him. An impatient voice came from the other end. "Anna's birthday. I'm not coming back tonight." I opened my mouth, wanting to ask him whether he knew today was the anniversary of my parents' deaths. But when the words reached my lips, I felt there was no point. So I replied gently, "All right. Wish Anna a happy birthday for me." For no apparent reason, Daniel suddenly exploded in anger. "Celine, do you really not care at all anymore? If you don't want to be my wife, there are plenty of women out there lining up to marry me." I let out a bitter smile. For these 5 years, I had dreamed of marrying him. Yet when the day truly arrived, I hesitated, because I didn't want to spend the next 10 5-year stretches of my life beside him. Day after day, Anna's dorm lost power. "I'm not coming back tonight. Suit yourself. Have fun." With that, I hung up. Chapter 5. I was awakened in the middle of the night by loud noises upstairs. The alcoholic husband was beating his wife again. It had happened several times before, but each time it ended without consequences after neighbors called the police to mediate. But tonight, the shouting and hitting never stopped. It seemed no one had called the police, and I couldn't endure it anymore. I dialed 110. Then I grabbed a kitchen knife and rushed upstairs. When the door opened, a stench of alcohol hit me in the face. The man's expression was vicious as he barked, "You bitch. What do you think you're doing?" I calmly raised the knife in my hand. "Try hitting a woman again. See what happens." Perhaps the icy, unhinged look about me sobered him up halfway. "Crazy woman. Completely crazy. You think you can kill me or something?" I looked past him at the woman behind him. She was cowering in the corner, her gaze fearful. But in the instant our eyes met, a trace of resolve suddenly appeared in her eyes. The man glared at me viciously and raised his hand, trying to strike. At that moment, the woman behind him suddenly swung a baseball bat and brought it down hard on his back. The man cried out in pain and collapsed to his knees. Just then, the police arrived and quickly subdued him. We were taken to the police station to give statements. While registering our information, an officer asked whether I needed them to notify my family. "No," I said. "I don't have any family." Chapter 6. Daniel arrived a little after 5 in the morning. The property management had notified him that I'd been taken away by the police. When he entered the station, impatience was written all over his face. He rushed up to me and launched into a barrage of accusations. "Why are you meddling in other people's business? Which neighbor is as nosy as you? A husband and wife fighting is their own affair. What does it have to do with you? We're about to get married. Can't you just behave yourself for once?" It won't happen again. Only then did his tone soften, and he finally noticed the injury on my hand. Forget it. I'll take you to the hospital. It's fine. Just a minor injury. When we walked out of the police station, I saw Anna sitting in the front passenger seat of his car. Inside were birthday decorations that hadn't been cleaned up yet. So I walked to the roadside to hail a taxi. Daniel grabbed my arm. What's wrong with you now? I looked at him quietly and suddenly felt exhausted. Daniel, I didn't rest well last night. Can I just go home? There was only one day left before I left this place for good. There was no need to keep entangling myself in rotten people and rotten matters. Anna got out of the car and said sweetly, Professor, just let Celine take a taxi back herself. We still have a forum to attend later. Daniel seemed to sense something. He frowned slightly, without saying a word. While he was distracted, I had already called a cab. I went home and slept for a while. When I woke up, I saw several missed calls from Daniel. He'd left messages on WeChat saying he'd come back tonight to have dinner with me. Probably guilt. The wedding planning company asked in the group chat for confirmation of tomorrow's bridal procession. I replied indifferently with a single word, okay. I put the wedding dress delivered by the bridal shop into the wardrobe. If Daniel came back tonight, we could still sit down and talk calmly. Unfortunately, I waited until midnight and he still didn't show up. My flight was at 3 in the morning. I had to leave immediately, so I stopped waiting, picked up my suitcase, and prepared to take a taxi to the airport. Just as I was waiting by the road, a car slowly pulled up in front of me. Where are you going? I'll give you a ride. Chapter 7. The car window rolled down, revealing a face covered in bruises. The woman from upstairs, the one who had been abused by her husband, gave me a smile uglier than crying. There was a car accident on Nanhui Road. Traffic's blocked. If you call a ride now, you'll have to wait at least half an hour. She glanced at my luggage and said calmly, Airport, right? She got out of the car, put my suitcase into the trunk, then opened the passenger door and gestured for me to get in. I hesitated for a moment, then got into the car. Her driving skills were superb. She avoided the congested ring roads, stayed off the overpasses, and got me to the airport in just 1 hour. When I got out, she wished me a safe journey. I reached out and hugged her. She leaned against my shoulder and told me her name was Lily. She had once been one of the best female race car drivers in Jiang Qing. Last night, if I hadn't shown up, she had planned to die together with her abusive husband. You and I, we shouldn't be trapped here. After saying that, Lily got back into the car and drove away. 8 hours later, the plane landed in Germany. The moment I turned on my phone, I received a call from Daniel. He angrily demanded to know where I had gone. The wedding convoy was waiting downstairs like a bunch of fools. All the guests are already at the hotel. How am I supposed to explain this to everyone? I heard Anna's voice on the other end of the phone. How could Celine be so irresponsible? Isn't she just making a joke out of everyone? Professor, don't worry, I'll think of something right away. Think of something? You're wearing a bridesmaid dress more extravagant than the bride's. Aren't you the ready-made bride? Daniel, let's break up. There was a 3-second silence on the other end, followed by Daniel's furious outburst. Celine, are you fucking with me? At that moment, I felt no pleasure of revenge, only a calm sense of release. Celine, say something. What do these 5 years mean to you? Huh? Daniel was a refined professor who rarely used profanity. It seemed this time, he was truly enraged. Chapter 8. I hung up the call, then removed the SIM card and snapped it in half. A new country, a new life, a new Celine. The 3 years I spent pursuing my doctorate in Germany became the most important 5 years of my life. During my studies, Daniel used every connection he had to track down my address. On Christmas Day, he stood downstairs at my dormitory holding a bouquet of flowers, waiting for me for a long time. I stood on the second floor, watching the snow fall heavily, landing on his thin suit jacket. I remembered that winter years ago, he had stood outside my house the same way, wearing a drafty cotton coat, begging my father to fund his research group. Daniel was a thoroughgoing ambitionist. In his world, success outweighed everything. So when he realized I had slipped out of his control and could no longer be conquered, he began to reassess me. My roommate asked, "Aren't you going downstairs to take a look? That man has been standing there almost all day." I lowered my head to revise my paper and replied without looking up, When he can't keep up the act anymore, he'll leave on his own. Daniel stayed in Germany for 3 days, using all his connections to smooth things over for me with professors and classmates. Everyone knew I had a wealthy pursuer. I neither denied it nor confirmed it. If Daniel was willing to use his resources to help me, all the better. Whether it was guilt or something else didn't matter. What mattered was that I benefited from it. That was the key point. In my 2nd year in Germany, Lily sent me a gift and told me that Daniel and Anna had moved in together. The two of them appeared everywhere as a pair in their residential community, looking just like a loving married couple. To avoid gossip at school, Anna voluntarily withdrew. Giving up her graduate studies was probably the stupidest decision she would ever make in her life. I looked at the photos Lily sent. Anna was holding Daniel's arm, her face full of happiness and sweetness. She thought she had found true love, one worth trading her future for. Chapter 9. The most laughable thing was that just a month earlier, Daniel had specially flown to Germany to celebrate my birthday. He bought a cake and gifts. Sitting downstairs at my lab building, playing the role of a devoted male lead hopelessly in love. In the end, I threw the cake into the trash. The gift was an expensive laptop, still useful, so I kept it. My roommate said I was cold-hearted. So handsome and successful. And he's chasing after you, don't you feel anything at all? I scrolled through Anna's social media. Her latest post showed a lavish 4-dish meal with soup. The caption read, "Waiting for our professor to come home." Daniel appeared occasionally in her photos, though always with only an impatient side profile. By the 3rd year, Daniel came to Germany far less often. Lily told me Anna was pregnant, with more than 4 months left until the due date. Recently, she had been causing a lot of trouble because Daniel hadn't registered the marriage with her, nor given her a grand wedding. Lily lived upstairs and could often hear their arguments at night. Pregnancy had made Anna emotionally unstable. In the middle of the night, she would threaten suicide again and again, drawing the Women's Federation to come mediate several times. This seriously affected Daniel's professional title evaluation. One late night, I received a call from Daniel. He was drunk. "Celine, I miss you so much. I really miss you." He was probably regretting it. Anna was no longer lively and full of vitality like before. She had become sensitive, suspicious, irritable, and hysterical. Yet Daniel had never once thought about why things had turned out this way. I remembered that day at the hospital bed, when my mother held my hand and closed her eyes with relief. She thought she had found someone I could entrust my whole life to. But how could she have known that staking a woman's entire future on another man was, in itself, a gamble? The most important bet I should have made was on myself. Chapter 10. At the beginning of my 5th year of doctoral studies, I had basically completed my dissertation. My advisor hoped I would stay in Germany, but I declined. My roommate joked, "Going back to China for that professor, right?" I smiled and nodded. Of course I was returning for Daniel, after all. My parents' company was still in his hands. That biotech company, I still held 50% of the shares. It was the dowry my parents had left me. Over the years, Daniel had run the company very well. For that, I should thank him. On the day I returned home, Lily came to pick me up at the airport, just like 5 years ago, when she had sent me off and told me that neither of us should be trapped there. She had cut her hair short and was wearing a sleek racing suit. Hanging from the rearview mirror was a souvenir from her rally championship. In these 5 years, she had successfully divorced and fulfilled the dream she'd had when she was young. Last year, a kind-hearted person transferred me some money to sponsor the purchase of this car. My fingers gently brushed over her championship memento. "Is that so? That really is lucky." She turned to look at me, and we exchanged a smile. "I've already rented a place for you. You can move in right away." "Thank you." The apartment was great, spacious, bright, and very close to Jiang University. Standing on the balcony, Lily handed me a can of beer. "So, what's your plan next?" I thought about it and decided to accept Jiang University's offer. The identity of a university lecturer would be my best credential. I was going to take back my parents' company and kick Daniel out completely. She lifted her beer bottle and clinked it lightly against mine. "We'll both get what we want." Chapter 11. At exactly 35 years old, I officially joined Jiang University. On my first day, the person in charge from the academic affairs office led me into the office. The moment Daniel saw me, He panicked. He fumbled and knocked over the cup on his desk while hurriedly wiping it up. He accidentally tipped over his chair as well. At the welcome dinner that evening, Daniel was visibly distracted, glancing at me again and again. After the dinner ended, he cornered me in the underground parking garage, his eyes red as he questioned me. "Celine, you still have me in your heart, don't you? Otherwise, you wouldn't have come back just for me." He grabbed my arm, desperately seeking an answer. "Celine, I can't understand it. I really can't. Why did you leave right before our wedding back then? Do you know how much pain I've been in all this time?" Pain? He and Anna had even had a child. Did that still count as pain? I stepped closer to him. Daniel's pupils shrank sharply. He looked flustered, instinctively swallowing. "Daniel, if you can't figure it out, then go die." After saying that, I shook off his hand and turned around, only to see Anna standing there, holding a child, having come to check on him. The moment she saw me, her emotions completely collapsed. "Celine, it's been so many years. Why won't you just let Daniel go? You were the one who abandoned him first, and now you come back shamelessly to entangle yourself with him." Anna had changed a lot. She was only 28, but the exhaustion in her eyes gave her a weariness that didn't match her age. The child in her arms cried nonstop. She tried to comfort him until she was utterly drained, finally collapsing onto the ground and breaking down in tears. "You're all bullying me, Celine. You'll die a horrible death." I looked at her coldly. Anna would never understand that stealing a man is the most pointless thing in the world. What women should really do is compete with men for power, status, and control. And that was the real reason I came back. Chapter 12. Daniel impatiently pulled her up from the ground. "You're dressed like a mess. Acting like a shrew now. What exactly do you want?" Anna glared at him. "So you lied about working overtime just to rekindle things with your old lover. Is that it?" "Daniel, don't forget, you were the one who said you liked children. I risked my life to give birth to little Bao. I almost died. I even gave up my studies for you. Everything I did was for you. You ungrateful bastard." Anna dragged out one past incident after another, listing them one by one, because those were her sunk costs. She had given up far too much for a man, but she forgot the most important thing. Sunk costs do not participate in major decision-making. Everything she had paid should never have become shackles that bound future decisions. As a man who had clawed his way up from the bottom, Daniel hated nothing more than being reminded of the past. He roared at Anna to shut up. "If you feel wronged, then get the hell out right now. Take the kid with you. I don't want him." The moment those words left his mouth, Anna froze, grinding her teeth. She said, "Daniel, are you even human?" But in the very next second, she turned her hostility toward me. "Celine, this is all your fault. You bitch. Before you came back, everything was fine. The moment you returned, everything went to hell. You just couldn't stand seeing me live well. So you deliberately came back to ruin my marriage." I walked up to her and spread my hands. "Is that really the case? Anna, before I came back, did you truly think you were happy?" The conflicts between her and Daniel had always existed. My return merely gave her an outlet for her emotions. I reached out and tidied the messy hair at her temples. "Actually, you shouldn't have chosen that bridesmaid dress back then. From the very beginning, you never understood your own position, so don't blame others for not cherishing you." That sentence completely snapped her already fragile nerves. Chapter 13. After that day, Anna began appearing on campus frequently. She would hold the baby and wait outside the classroom for Daniel to finish teaching, introducing herself to his students as their professor's wife. Under the students' strange looks, she proudly declared that she was Daniel's legitimate spouse. She found every excuse to check in at the lab, forcibly participated in our research meetings, checked Daniel's phone at fixed times every day, and monitored whether he was secretly chatting with me. This series of near-maniacal actions finally pushed Daniel over the edge. He could no longer maintain the image of a refined professor and curse loudly in front of the entire office. The child in Anna's arms was frightened into wailing. "Daniel, I don't ask for anything else. I just want a legal status." She knew she couldn't bind this man's heart, so she wanted to use marriage to bind him instead. The incident alarmed the dean, who stepped in to mediate and ordered Daniel to take 2 months off to handle his family matters before returning to work. I seized the opportunity to propose taking over his research group's work. After all, our doctoral research directions were similar, and our academic backgrounds were comparable. Things went unexpectedly smoothly. After entering the group, I began winning over the students at the fastest possible pace. Most of the group's funding came from the company my parents had left behind. The resources and output of the research group were equivalent to half of the company's innovation department. I poured real money into them, far more tempting than the empty promises Daniel had been making. With me, every student in the group could enjoy a high-paying guaranteed employment contract. After 5 years of employment, there would also be stock options and shares. Those 2 months when Anna was threatening suicide at home to force Daniel into marriage became my golden window for buying loyalty. High salaries plus binding contracts, almost the entire research group defected. Chapter 14. 2 months later, Daniel finally managed to placate her. When he returned to the university, he noticed that the looks people gave him were all tinged with distance. Only then did he belatedly sense that something was wrong. I rescheduled the group meeting to Friday and deliberately didn't invite him to dinner that day. When Daniel realized what was happening and stormed into the private room to demand an explanation, I deliberately sent a photo of him being present to Anna. A woman in crisis sees danger everywhere. In less than 10 minutes, she arrived at the scene with the baby in her arms. Inside the private room, I smiled at Daniel and spoke in deliberately ambiguous terms. Professor, after all, we were once acquainted. How come you've brought your family along to an occasion like this? Daniel's face shifted between green and white. He held it in for a long time before finally saying, Anna, take the baby home first. I'll deal with things here and come back afterward. Anna replied sarcastically. Am I interrupting your little reunion with an old flame? Already in a foul mood from losing control of the research group, Daniel said coldly, If you've got nothing better to do, go find a job. Don't pick fights every chance you get. Anna exploded the moment she heard that. So now you despise me for not working? Who was it that said they'd support me for life when I was giving birth? There were 7 or 8 students in the room, all keeping their heads down while avidly listening to the gossip. Losing face in front of his students, Daniel grew even more furious. Anna, I've warned you many times. If you keep making scenes like this, get the hell out. I stepped in as the voice of comfort, gently smoothing things over. Professor, don't be angry. She's just acting this way because she cares about you too much. Why don't you go home and spend some time with your wife and child? I'll keep an eye on the research group. Nothing major will go wrong. Daniel looked at me deeply. He was a smart man. He knew exactly what I was trying to do. Celine, you've really changed a lot. Of course I have. Chapter 15. My family spent 15 years cultivating Daniel, intending from the start for him to be used by me. It just took me a full 5 years to truly understand that. In this game, I was the main character. Daniel, Anna, both of them were nothing more than stepping stones on my path forward. The atmosphere in the private room was unbearably tense. In a fit of rage, Daniel abandoned Anna and the child and left. Anna stood there holding the baby. At a complete loss, I settled the bill for the room, then took her alone to the room next door. Actually, it's not impossible for you to keep Daniel by your side for the rest of your life. Right now, he has power and money, so of course he doesn't take you or the child seriously. But if he's no longer a professor, if he becomes an ordinary man, then he'll be your child's father and your husband. Anna's eyes lit up slightly. She seemed to understand what I was implying, though she was still struggling internally. The petty fights you've been picking only make him angry. They don't touch his core interests. I crouched halfway down to meet her gaze. You know what to do, don't you? A week later, a report letter was delivered to the Jiang Qing Education Bureau. The contents included, but were not limited to, Associate Professor Daniel of Biology having an out-of-wedlock child, withholding labor payments from group members, and embezzling activity funds under false pretenses. The report was detailed, thorough, and well supported. Even though the dean attempted to cover for him, Daniel was still dismissed. From then on, if he ever wanted to work at a university again, it would only be under an off-staff, contract-based position. Chapter 16. Daniel remained dejected at home for a long time. The happiest person was Anna. She once again devoted herself meticulously to taking care of her husband, regaining her sense of value and meaning. Her social media became lively again. Meanwhile, I had already fully taken over all of Daniel's research group resources. Every day I was overwhelmingly busy, with no time to care about anyone else. I traveled among high-level academic conferences to promote my company, and by the end of the year, I was successfully promoted to associate professor. Career success brought an unparalleled sense of fulfillment, until Lily reminded me that Daniel had sold the large downtown apartment and no one knew what he was planning. By now, he should have finally realized that the person who truly destroyed his career was me. Hating me was inevitable. On the last day before summer break, Daniel swiped the lab access card and came in. I was guiding students with experiments at the time. He had lost a lot of weight and calmly said he wanted to talk. I checked the time and dismissed everyone early, telling them to return to their dorms. Daniel looked at me, his eyes filled with bloodshot veins. "Celine, are you happy getting revenge on me?" I turned off the buzzing centrifuge and took out the blood samples inside. The layers had separated perfectly. Revenge doesn't give me much pleasure. Success does. He clenched his teeth. "Everything you have now is mine. You stole what belonged to me." "Daniel, who stole from whom? You know that perfectly well. My family raised him as a successor. My father's expectations for him were even higher than for me. We handed the company to him, funded his research group, and supported him financially and materially through 15 years of education. We never mistreated him. Why is it that men so naturally take all of this for granted?" Even during the 5 years I stayed by his side, swallowing my pride, he never once mentioned the kindness my family showed him. Chapter 17. Daniel finally couldn't keep up the act. "Celine, you can forget about kicking me out of the boardroom. I built this company with my own hands. When your family went bankrupt, it was your father who begged me to take over this mess." I smiled gently. "Yes. Of course I remember. That's why I always make a point of thanking you by name at every shareholders meeting." "Oh, sorry, I forgot. You weren't invited to the last few shareholders meetings. No wonder you didn't know. Daniel, I heard you sold your apartment. Can't make ends meet anymore? What a pity. After all these years of struggle, that place was the only thing still worth some money. Consider it the last bit of goodwill my family left you." His gaze darkened as he stared at me. "What do you mean by that? When you took over the group, didn't you read the contract my father gave you? The shares and options in your hands only entitled you to dividends. Once you leave the company, you take nothing, not a single cent. Over the years, after paying off the mortgage on that apartment with his dividends and professor's salary, he probably had very little left. Now, you've been completely kicked out." I said it with a smile. He was utterly enraged. His hand came down in a sharp slap. A crisp sound echoed. I didn't dodge. I let the corner of my mouth split and bleed. "Daniel, you should have known from the start, if you're living off someone else, you'd better behave like it. You should have been grateful to my family, instead of flirting with Anna and carrying on an affair right under my nose. What a pity, nearly 40 years old, and you ended up with nothing." He completely lost control, grabbing my neck with both hands and cursing me as a venomous woman. Struggling, I smashed the glass test tube on the table and stabbed the shards viciously into the back of his hand, then slammed the fire alarm. Only then did Daniel come to his senses and flee in panic. Glass cut into my palm, blood streaming down my arm. I calmly watched the blood snake its way downward, then lifted my head and spoke to the police who rushed in. The assailants stole my Van Cleef Arpels bracelet. Home invasion, assault, robbery. Every sentencing buff stacked to the maximum. Chapter 18. The lab surveillance coverage wasn't complete, but it did capture the part where Daniel attacked me. I was never a good person to begin with. The bracelet was slipped into his pocket during the struggle. My movement was discreet, so much so that even Daniel himself didn't realize it. My injuries weren't serious, but if I had 3 points of damage, I would amplify them into 10. Photo documentation, medical examination, injury assessment. After going through the full procedure, it was more than enough to ruin him completely in public opinion. The case moved quickly. By the next morning, he was arrested. Daniel flatly denied the robbery, but when the bracelet was found in his pocket, disbelief filled his eyes. I hired the best lawyer in Jiang Qing to handle the case for me. I had no other request. I just wanted him to rot in prison. During his detention, Anna came to my company holding the child, begging me again and again to withdraw the charges against Daniel. In just a few short years, She had gone from a youthful, radiant college girl to a hateful, resentful woman. Dropping the charges is impossible, I said coldly. You'd better pray that before your child comes of age, he'll at least get to see his father released from prison. Anna went berserk and rushed at me, trying to hit me, but security stopped her. Celine, are you really this cruel? You were lovers once, do you really have to destroy him completely? I let out a cold laugh. If you love him that much, why don't you take the child and go keep him company in prison? There are very few people in this world who repay kindness with gratitude. There are far more scum who forget favors the moment appears. Before the trial, I went to the detention center to see Daniel once. His mental state was unstable. He clutched the iron bars and hysterically demanded to know why I was destroying him. I raised my hand and showed him the wound. This, I learned from you. In the lab. For one brief moment, he truly wanted to kill me. He hated me. He wanted me dead. Why should I show mercy? Besides, all I did was give him more than 10 years behind bars. I didn't take his life. He should be grateful. Daniel, do you remember what you promised my father that year when you were begging for funding? He suddenly burst into mad laughter. Your family raised me like a dog. Your father trained me like one. Wasn't it all just so I'd grovel at your feet? Celine, you're not a good person either. I smiled and replied softly. Of course not. If I were a good person, I'd have died long ago. Years of my family's kindness were reduced in his mouth to dog training. At that point, there was nothing left to say. Chapter 19. After leaving the detention center, I saw Lily's car parked outside. She waved at me. Perfect timing. Come watch my exhibition race. This year, Lily became the only female judge on the Jiang Qing racing committee. She had already achieved a grand slam of honors and become, in every sense, the best racer. At the exhibition race venue, dust swirled in the air. I watched her car tear across the wide track, and her final drift landed perfectly steady. The stands erupted with fans cheering and shouting. The entire judges section stood up and applauded. I saw huge letters painted on the side of her car, CL. My initials. I never told her that the anonymous donation she received back then came from part of my doctoral scholarship. I saved every penny and wired that money to her anonymously, not to make her feel grateful. I simply helped another woman. As a woman, that was all. In the 5th year after taking over the company, I had already become one of the most formidable figures in the industry. The company's annual profit was enough for me to lie flat for the rest of my life. Every year, I set aside 10% of the profits to sponsor girls who have dropped out of school, most of them from impoverished mountain regions. Some of them were older sisters. Some were younger sisters. Some were abandoned infants born healthy. And some were broken-winged angels abandoned the moment they were born. Thanks to good policies, they survived. And I would tirelessly tell every poor girl still naive and unaware, don't stand still and wait. Be sure, again and again, and again, to strive upward. Save yourself from fire and water.